welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have a returning guest. Hi Blair, how we doing?
I'm good. How are you, Manny?
I'm good. We're kind of laughing because we've just had to restart. Because I was fucking around with my chair. We're here. You've also got some exciting things coming up, so we kind of want to talk about them and um, discuss the makings and how that sort of came about. So
Definitely.
before we start and before we get into it, if you give people a little background on who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are.
Definitely. Yeah. So from a strength and conditioning coach perspective, I actually was personal training out in Colorado. I was managing personal training team out there, and I really wanted to work with athletes. It's just a demographic that I lived it, my lived experience. I wanted to give back to that group, so I went to University of Miami, got my master's there, interned there. Excellent experience. Got into sports science there, and so a lot of just eye-opening opportunities as a result of being there. And then I moved to Boston because I was aware of Mike Boyle's strength and conditioning, and I had an internship that actually got deferred due to COVID. And so I was supposed to be in Boston before University of Miami. I came to Boston after University of Miami, and then I just never left. So after that internship, I was at Northeastern University, and now I am the director of training at a private studio called Pure Performance.
Nice. I kind of want to get into a little bit about the balancing between strength and conditioning and sports science, and that kind of leads on to the course building. How did you sort of get into the sports science of strength and conditioning, and how are you integrating both into your daily practices now?
Yeah, so like I said, introduced to the sports science aspect while I was at University of Miami, and the way that I had an opportunity to become integrated in that was really with the men's and women's basketball team. We ran a bunch of tests. So we got them on the court, had them do quarter court sprints, and got with the timing gates, and took them in the weight room, and were able to determine their force velocity profiles with the gym awares. And it was really just my first opportunity to have my eyes open to the fact that we could detect um, how to really tailor someone's programming and what their opportunities were by integrating this technology. So truly, that was my initial lens or my initial exposure. Um, they did a bit of Mike Boyle strength and conditioning. They got jump mats and they had the timing gates over there, just so that athletes can see their progress. Which I think just that in and of itself, if that's what you're going to use it for, and you were going to integrate um, these very intuitive technologies, I think it still has benefit because you get maximal effort, right? I mean, athletes are going to try to continuously beat themselves. And so, anyways, I'll digress, but I do think it's valuable, even if it was just for the output metrics. And then I will say, when I was at Northeastern University, that was my first real opportunity to dive into force plate metrics in particular. I did have an opportunity to work with some GPS as well, but truthfully, like in the weight room, which is like where I am, where I work most often. It was really with force plates and getting to know the metrics, what those metrics meant from how to interpret them, and then how to actually make them usable. Right, have a frame of reference to allow that to be usable information. And I think as I've continued to like learn more about sports science integration, that's really what we're going for, is how can I interpret this information into something usable. And so that's what I've been able to do kind of so far.
Yeah. So how are you intentional making them usable for what specific things you're looking for?
So I think you, again, like you leverage the things you understand. And I think like with when you know sports science, you know that there's so many things that you can look at. And I think our responsibilities first is to identify, well, what would we like to understand, and then make sure that we
Mm,
understand it. And so some of those metrics, yes, like jump height is fantastic to know, but power output is a little bit more helpful, right? Like propulsive power output. It's helpful to know, okay, well, how far did somebody descend in order to complete their counter movement jump? How much force did they produce at the bottom of that descent? Those things really start to paint a picture into an athlete's strategy. And if we can start to detect the things of their regarding their strategy, we can also look at, okay, well, how much access to range of motion do they have if they're just on the table, if they're not being asked to perform a task, and if that's limited in their range of motion and their counter movement depth is shallow comparatively speaking, and there's the propensity for injury, or they're not as successful in some of the actions that they're performing on the field, the court, the ice, whatever it may be, that's like an opportunity now, right? We can put these things together, we can synthesize them, and we can make effective decisions. So I like looking at velocity metrics. Um, I like looking at just total time metrics, displacement metrics, power metrics. Those are, and then force producing. And I think if I can really just simplify it to like basic physics, that gives me a pretty good lens into what I might need to know on behalf of an athlete's strategy. Very similarly, like some of those things in context, things like MRSI. Okay, if my jump height got higher, but my MRSI went down, and I play a sport where I have to execute quickly, that might not be advantageous. There might be more to uncover there. So there's just a lot of ways that, by virtue of understanding these things and their relationship to each other, um, we can get an idea for where we might need to go with our athletes.
Yeah, I think one thing that you've mentioned that's quite interesting, and just a little background, I've got my sports massage diploma, so it kind of allows me to do manual therapy and sort of get a little bit more into torturing athletes to make them move better. That's the way I like to describe it.
Cool.
Um, but you're absolutely right in the sense that if you measure them lying down on a table, that's going to look completely different to them actually moving and how they handle to the strength, stretch, and shortening of a muscle while being um like really constricted into that specific area. Like we can touch a muscle, we can see, oh, actually, that feels quite tight. That's quite painful. Like let me press it and let's stretch it, see what happens. And I
Right.
think when you're dealing with athletes, their sport isn't lying on their back on a table or lying on their back doing X movement.
Totally.
So for us to expect them to be great at movement because we train that way doesn't necessarily transfer to what they actually need in their sport.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned like those different aspects of like metrics, but all of those things, right? The speed at which somebody executes, the force at which somebody is producing, um, those things all change the conditions by which an athlete is executing. And so we should expect a different strategy as a result, right? Like I should expect that, well, if I'm sprinting and I'm firing way faster than I'm picking up a barbell, I should expect my force output to be greater because the speed at which I'm moving is so much greater, right? Like there's an appreciation that I think um, we would have for that. I think just in the fact of like, yeah, we produce more force when the rate coding is faster. Like those types of things where like when you start to understand connective tissue behavior, muscle behavior, and then access to range of motion, like all of those things are really important, but in context, they're even more important.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that kind of goes back to that. Also, making sure that's individual enough for them to thrive in. Like
Totally.
when we're talking about baseline testing, baseline whatever, like there will be some nuances to everything that we test for every different athlete.
Yeah. And like if you look at athletes, like we can tell first of all, like their morphology, if you will, their anthropometrics are like suited for their sport. So it's like you get a lot of people that like when you start to get to, like closer to like the top, right? You do see that there's a lot of broader shoulders, narrower hips in our basketball players, right? These super athletic guys. You see with like runners, right? Like very like similar, like upper to lower. And so with that, and like to your point, if I kind of see these representations of morphology, I should expect them to execute things, whether that's force production or velocity execution or whatever it is. Like that should be different. The duration at which I'm able to execute a task and mitigate fatigue at lower thresholds, like all of those things, depending on what they do on a regular basis, and also like how they present, right? Just their morphology, I'll just use that term. Like we should expect them to be able to handle different tasks differently based on how they're structured.
And again, kind of diverting a little bit, but back into the sports science element of it, you have just passed your um, CPSS. How has that sort of now added that extra um, piece into what you're currently doing?
So I'll say this. I any like, national exam, I appreciate has uh its limitations, right? Like each one of these chapters is written by an expert who just gets like one chapter to tell you about their work and what they do really well. And so I think like if we zoom out of um expecting it to be this like revolutionary piece of work, and we go, no, this is supposed to give you an exposure so that you could dive deeper and you could become greater and greater at this. That's really, I think, what it's done for me, is given me just more information, more exposure to things that where then I appreciate. It's like the field's going to go this way. um Technology is being integrated everywhere. It's going to continue to do so. These different systems are going to continue to do a better job talking to each other. So the more that we get used to utilizing technology, understanding what it means. I mean, because like one of the things about information is like you can get a bunch of information, but if you want to understand things in order to truly leverage it, like there has to be understanding, there has to be like the acquisition of knowledge. And so I think where I'm super grateful that I invested my time in studying and learning was really just for that, was to make sure that I understand kind of what's going on in the field, where are my opportunities to grow, right? Because like it also has to be context dependent. Like one of the chapters talks about measuring brain waves. Like I'm not in an environment right now where I can do that. I'm not putting, I think it's called a Muse headband or something. I'm not doing that with my
Mhm.
athletes right now, but do I appreciate that, like that the better that technology becomes, that may become integrated, if we're not putting like full caps on people, we can really truly get quality data points and make it so that the head movements, whatever it is, I don't know, I'm talking about something that I read very, at a very superficial level. But once that becomes, that the technology is going to continue to evolve. And once that becomes a truly usable technology, we're going to see it more. And so it's like just to have the awareness and appreciation, I think is huge. I'll kind of like keep just tangenting for a second. I think
That's
another
all right.
really big another really big thing for me with regard to like getting this is like, okay, Blair's year 2 at Northeastern, and on my end of year evaluation, it says like I'm gonna pass the CPSS. I'm gonna study for it. It was something that was important to me that I acknowledged with my supervisor at the time. And I was like, this is something I'm gonna do. I had the book in my office, the whole thing, right? And it's like year 2, and then year 3, and then I'm director of training for the year, and it's like all this time goes by, and you still haven't done it. And I'll say this, like I appreciate, and I tell this to people all the time, that sometimes we have competing priorities and we have to make sure that we know what the main priority is, and so we do that thing. So I wouldn't necessarily say like, "Oh, I let myself down by not doing it sooner." It was just something like I always said I was going to do, and continue to push it and not make it a priority. This, my circumstances changed. I tore my ACL, and it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, well, you put it off because the investment of time, you didn't make it. It wasn't something that you were willing to concede other things for. Now, like look at yourself. You've said this is important. And so it was like, I'm going to I'm going to follow through with this. It's something that I said. Literally, if I pull up a final end of year evaluation, I could find it. Like, it's something I said was important to me. I also say that, we gain confidence by keeping the promises we make to ourselves. And so, in all of that, it was like, no, this is the right time. I have the time for it now. I'm going to fulfill this. I'm going to get it done. And in that, I learned a whole bunch of stuff, which was really cool too.
You're kind of alluding to give people a little background and behind the scenes is we have like weekly, sometimes monthly calls where we'll spend like 3 hours and a half talking, just
Yes.
dissecting everything that we're talking about. Um, but back to your point with the book and the chapters and how they also have a word limit for how much they can write. So then it becomes like this very like precise, very calculated thing of what they can say in order to trigger that response into, hey, do further research, do further reading on these areas, you will get more information. And I think what then we kind of alluded to in our conversations is with it just being that small, it really is up to us to find out more about that specific thing. At this day and age, it's not just good enough to read that chapter and that's it. Like you need to figure out, okay, like, hey, um, let's say Paul Comfort wrote a chapter on power development with force plates. That seems very probable, something that he will do. Um, so he mentions like upward force and maybe some landing mechanics. Like it's up to us as practitioners to read every other thing about the phases, not so we can become experts, but so that we can be good enough to be able to talk about it and apply it.
Totally agree. I think that was really well said.
I think that's where, and again, it kind of goes back to the educational system, the universities, and like you've got a whole 4 years here at least where you're learning everything that you can from sports science, biomechanics, physiology, psychology, sociology. Like you have 4 years to learn all of it. You can't become an expert um, within those 4 years. Like it's impossible. But what you do within those years, like your work experience, your further reading, your internships, connections, like that's what builds practitioners.
Oh,
In my opinion.
absolutely. I've kind of joked with the idea. So I'm on an advisory board for a university that it has a master's in applied sports science. And as we were kind of, talking through, it's a 1 year, master's program. It's virtual, and we were talking about it. And part of me just thinks, almost just leverage this text. Now, not exactly, but essentially, right? It's like leverage this text so that you could appreciate what's relevant right now, and then take each of those concepts and then like kind of do like offshoots of that, right? Where it's like, okay, you could learn the information in this book to pass a test. But if we appreciate, like, this is for right now the direction of the field and the most relevant for this aspect of the field, great. We could probably just do a bunch of offshoots of, there's
Yep.
elements of sports psychology in this. Like, well, if we're asking sport scientists to understand aspects of sports psychology, we should probably have a class on that. Um, if we're asking for sports scientists to understand periodization and programming, we should probably have a class on that. And so it's like kind of using this as like a reference so that you can expand upon, you can have a professor that you can ask questions to enhance your depth of knowledge. And that really should be the goal, is to take each one of these things and expand your learning. And then I would even say expand your learning, and then realize that you've got to create systems around these things too, right? It's like
Mhm.
you're not going to look at everything. So like part of, like, my system looks like we warm up and then we integrate sports tech, because after a warm up, that, like, after I conduct a warm up, I tell athletes this, like, I expect you to be full throttle ready to go. So the warm up is going to take you to the point where you are ready to go. And then we go and we test sprints and we test jumps, and we allot some downtime in between because I want those outputs to fully represent what that athlete is capable of on the day. And then we get into the rest of, the speed development, and then we get into the rest of power, strength, conditioning. Um, and it's like, put that into a system. And then it's like, okay, my system looks like I look at the trend reports every 4 weeks. Like, and then I leverage that to make my programming decisions. Um, and then I try to like think on behalf of the athlete if trends are negative, like, is there a chance that we were congested schedules and like this was just something that like, or did we truly not get better at this aspect? Is it the right time of the year to get better at this aspect? Like, if I'm training off season and our velocity goes down a little bit because we're really aiming for force production, let's just say that's like a really, but like, if I can expect that, or if I know that that's a potential, then I better see the force application, right? Other data points of for force application go up. So like my battery of tests should ensure that that's what I'm seeing on that athlete's behalf. But I think knowing like your concessions for like training different points of the year, um, like all of that is relevant for how you integrate into your systems. Um,
Mm.
like again, like I said, right? Like I try to think on behalf of athletes, especially in the private sector. It's like, are you like, what phase of the year should you be training in? Because you know this, like if an athlete's competing, they're in high school, they're competing in multiple sports. It's like, okay, well, I want to give you those foundational exposures of an off season because I want you to build, but also it's like, can I actually authentically give you those exposures because you're also playing a sport right now, and like, am I going to be taking away from your ability to play that sport? How important is that sport to you? Are you trying to play basketball in college, and so maybe there's a time in the year where that can be the emphasis and we can like move around that? Because I try to make sure that um there's like a foundational like strength building component, and then there's an actualization, like speed, power, that like that's the thing that I want us to get better at. um and then like the capacity, the metabolic component. So like throughout the year, like you should be seeing these different things, at least from like my perspective. But again, that's a great perspective to have, but if it can't exist truly, then I've got to like adjust my system accordingly for that athlete to truly benefit. So I think having the ability to measure within a system allows you to make those decisions on their behalf just more informed, honestly.
Yeah.
The informed decision.
Um, Going back a little bit, you mentioned your warm up sort of protocol and how much you it's maybe not the right way of saying it. But for your warm up, are you doing a little bit more pop work, or is it just like how are you setting that up?
So I mean, truthfully, like it's a let's potentiate. If there's some opportunity to then like activate mobilize. So excuse me, if I said potentiate, I didn't mean that. I just meant like raise core body temperature. So sorry. First thing is like we're gonna literally like jog down and
Ramp.
back, easy skips, easy shuffles. Like we're just gonna like kind of move with the goal of like raising the core body temperature. Um, then we're gonna like make sure that we have access to like joint space. So we're gonna like mobilize tissues. We're gonna start to activate. So we're gonna raise the threshold of like how much force I'm asking you to put into the ground. That could look like some iso hold, but like very low threshold. Then that moves into like a little bit more dynamic, and then we that can be like stationary movements, and then we get dynamic. So that's very much so where we're focusing on that like that potentiation aspect, uh, relative to whatever the task is. So like if it's a linear day, more linear exposures. If it's a lateral day, you're gonna have like the more lateral exposures, and that's how I break up like speed on behalf of athletes.
Mm.
Um, and then we go from there. But that's like a pretty typical like sequence of warm up.
No, because again, I'm always in between whether pop is useful or not, and it does depend on context and whatnot. Um, Again, I like neuro prep quite a lot, and that kind of taps into the pop. Like before a game, like have them do high explosive movements. Again, that's some fascinating stuff for me.
No, I mean, I think so too, and I certainly enjoy like contrast training, right? And so if I'm trying to see, how effectively I can elicit that, like, that response, um yeah, if I want to, squat somebody and then have them sprint and see if, hey, did that, the motor recruitment that we just
Mm,
generated at a high intensity lift, did that transfer positively or not positively into the speed output? And if I anticipated that it would and it didn't, then I just have to, like, consider that that might not be, that method of training might not be the best thing for them,
mm,
right? I might need to
yeah.
adjust how I do that. So maybe it's not an 85% lift, effort lift. It's, you know, like, it's a higher rate activity that elicits more of like a power response, and then see if I get, if that type of, okay, well, if we're under a lighter load but at a higher velocity, does that now transfer on their behalf into something that's like at a fast rate? So I like to do like those kinds of things, just again because, like,
Mm,
if any if we're intentional, I think we're finding individualized solutions, and I think that to do that the best, we do need to pay attention to how we're providing those interventions, and then seeing if it's the best thing for them. Right? It's like you collect data on their behalf and you make decisions with it.
100%. I agree. Um, Now, to go a little bit more into what you've been building since the last episode, you are coming out with two courses.
I am.
Um, so you've been a bit busy. Um, can you sort of run us down the two courses, how they sort of came about, and how what are the learning pieces that people should expect from going on these courses?
Heck yeah. Well, I'll say this. The first course that I put together is on building an internship program, and that is actually, like, that's through TeamBuildr. So
Shout out to
I
TeamBuildr.
shout out to TeamBuildr. And so I got connected with TeamBuildr just through social media. And I think one thing to just appreciate about social media is that it allows for, like, good people, good coaches to find other good people, other good coaches, right? If you use it that way. And so, if if your Instagram feed looks like dogs doing funny things and a bunch of strength coach videos, like, we'll probably get along. But no, just through social media, connected with TeamBuildr, and um, you know, through that connection, I just let them know, hey, I would love to do this if there's an opportunity with you guys. So I don't normally talk about this, but I taught high school for 6 years. And in that time, I was constantly looking, like, just within the institution I taught at, is like, well, what could I create that would benefit the students that also aligns with my passions? And, like, truthfully, like, that's just what I've continued to do, just in other capacities. So I built an internship curriculum when I was at Northeastern that I was really proud of, that I thought was really beneficial for them. And so I just leveraged that experience, my own internship experience as well, right? I've been, an intern at a couple different places, University of Miami and Mike Boyle's, like I said. And so I just really wanted to create something that would help coaches do that. I also, during that time of creating that curriculum, I was getting another master's degree in organizational leadership, and with an emphasis in coaching. And so I tried to take kind of just a blend of my experiences, and I created the outline and then filled it in from there, right? Just based on what I understood to be true, my experiences, and just really wanting to contribute and create something resourceful for coaches. So that's the first course. And the second course, so I get the tendency to procrastinate because you just don't have enough time. And so I studied my butt off and I created all these really useful resources for myself with the CPSS. And so I am just independently launching a course where I synthesize and properly cite. To be honest with you, I think, like, that's probably the biggest thing is I didn't account for the need to properly cite all of my things, because when you're just studying, like, you just whatever, right? But, when it becomes something that you gotta kinda be mindful of, and with all, with all due respect, like, you should be mindful, you should credit your sources and things like that, and, um, appreciate when other people provide valuable work. So that's really just been, the, like, second course that I've really been working on developing is, um, video integration, an actual study guide, and then practice questions for each of the chapters, so that coaches had those resources to support them with studying if that's something that, they they feel the time constraint, and they look at, oh, this is something I've been putting off. Now let me kind of support you, come alongside you, and
Mm,
uh, help you pass. Honestly,
yeah,
I want to say
and I
this too.
think that
I'm so sorry, but I'd be remiss. This
it's
is
not
the
good.
first time that I've passed one of these, like, course or one of these certifications on the first try. So, like, way back when I started personal training, that's throwing it back. I did not pass my NASM CPT on the first try, and, like, not for lack of effort. I read the whole book front to back, and, like, that was not the way. Then I took the CSS, and I studied that book. I read the cover to cover, and, like, that's always been my strategy is, like, I will do the work. Like, I know that, and so, you read cover to cover, and you just don't pick up details, at least what I've found. Like, I'm not good enough to just read front to back with new information that, like, I just haven't, um I didn't have enough of, like, a background to just read front to back and then also figure out, well, what are the most important parts of this? Like, I was reading it like I was reading any other book, and it's like, well, that's not how you do it. And so
Mm.
instead of trying to do it that way, I was like, no, what are the key pieces of information that I need to know for each of these parts? And then synthesize that, and this is the first time that I passed on the first try, so I'm stoked about that. And I felt actually really prepared going into it because of the change of focus and how I studied for the past two versus this one. And so I think that's important to say too, is, like, I also have created something that really truly did help me.
I think we spoke about this, but it's learning to learn your way, and it's like when we're going through education, we're taught to learn in a systematic way that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And I think that's where the individualization of school systems should be better. Like, I mean, I will always give Adam Fight props for everything that he does because he has created a program based on trends that he'll see in the industry. Not just that, he'll apply learning systems, different learning systems, so that their students can absorb and pass and be successful. Like Adam, like so in a university setting, your education is determined by an educational board. The lecturers each year have to submit the coursework for approval. Now, what Adam Fire is really good at is he'll see trends, he'll adapt it within the scope of what the learning material is. And then when it comes to resubmit that new module, new information, he'll do so in a way that is broad enough so that everything can sort of fit into the learning curriculum. And I think that's, again, like coaching, education should be adaptable and
Yeah.
should be um, flexible.
The fact that he's doing that in the university setting, I'd give him a ton of credit, just because I think you almost, like, expect kids, and they're still kids, right? They're, like, if they're college
Mhm.
kids, but, um, you almost expect them to know how to do that, but it's like, well, if they haven't been taught how to do that, right? I mean, essentially, like, what you're talking about, I think, is like scaffolding, right? It's like, how do I how do I present you this information where you can have success with it enough that it keeps you motivated to keep going without
Mm,
it being boring, and without it being like over, too over the top for you to actually even grasp. And that's a real art with
Hmm.
teaching. But if you could, I mean, if he's doing that at the university level, yeah, like that's amazing.
So I've been on this tyrant recently on the learning and teaching and coaching sort of loop. So
Hmm.
like either teaching at the top, coaching at the bottom, whichever one you want to do at the top or bottom doesn't matter. It's a loop. I think we've spoke about this. But it's like it's this idea that when you're coaching, there is an element of teaching. Like if no one's been in the weight room before, you're teaching them movement. You're
Totally.
not coaching them the movement yet. Like you're just teaching them. You're teaching them the basics. You're teaching them behavior patterns. You're teaching them, okay, this is hard. This is going to suck, but you can do it. You can persevere. And then we get to that coaching element where now it's like, okay, what's progressions? What's the regressions? What's the next thing that's going to elicit that next change? But now where I'm sort of really enjoying this loop is like, okay, you're at a D1 level, right? You can coach really high educated athletes. Like you tell them something, chances are they'll probably do it first time, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In an ideal world, we'll say. But then if we get removed from that D1 and now we go into high school level where you've got like beginner people who have never lifted a day in their life, like how are you going to then teach, coach, and educate them to be able to get to that D1? Like, what is your language going to be like? What is your demonstrations going to be like? What are your little nuances that you want to keep, but then how do you adapt them to a lower level
Yeah.
of movement ability? And I think that's really fascinating right now.
I like would love to like expand on that.
Let's
Um,
go.
yeah, let's do it. So, one thing, especially with like lower level, and what I mean by lower level is just younger. Um,
Hmm.
I think we have to appreciate that the younger the audience that we work with, the more responsibility that we have to play that teaching role,
Yep.
because they literally are novice. They need a lot of direction. And so if there's going to be a lot of teaching, and you should really, I mean, honestly, just prepare yourself for that, right? Like if I'm prepared for that, so me as the coach, if I'm prepared for an environment where I'm going to have to do a lot of teaching because the level is just novice, like that's okay, but like be prepared. The next part of that for me is I also have to kind of be prepared, and like for better or worse, this is my experience. I hope that everybody else has a different experience in this, but if your experience is like mine, then you will have also seen that it is very vulnerable to ask an athlete to do something, especially in front of their peers, and like they don't have success with it, especially if they're the kind of kid that is used to like, oh, I'm very successful at basketball or I'm very
Hmm.
successful at soccer, and then you put them into an environment where you're asking them to do some kind of variation of a skip, and all of a sudden like their coordination looks wild. And so again, like here's where like that the teaching element, but also like normalizing and making sure that they know that like it's okay to not be perfect at it right now and what you need from them instead. So like one of the things that like I will say is like I'll say a couple different things. One, hey, this is hard. So my expectation is not that you're doing it perfectly. My expectation is that you're listening, that you're focused, and that you're giving me your best effort. And if you're doing that right now, then you are doing it right. I'll also talk about like the intent of the drill. For me, skipping is all about like I want rapid ground contacts so that we are like priming your ability to demonstrate your like elasticity, your springs. I want to fine tuning your springs so that you can sprint more effectively. So if what you're giving me is like attacking the ground and coming up off the ground fast when you're skipping, if that's what you're doing for me, you're doing great. I need you to focus on that. And like I'll try to give these things that's like the intention of the drill is this, so that you can like stay like, okay, here's why I'm doing this thing. If I'm not perfect at it yet, and I keep trying, and I'm going to get another chance at this, and so I keep trying, and like, and it's okay for me to fail, and you're telling me as, because look, if you're working with high school, middle school schoolers, like you're the perceived authority, like you're the authority, and so like if you're telling me it's okay, that means so much. And so I try to like take that perspective into the environment so that I can support these athletes in like having success, because like especially when you're working in a big group and you might not have like a whole lot of time to like pull and go one on one because you're responsible for the whole. I think giving them those elements and then pointing them out, that's better, right? Like helping them like
Hmm.
they're achieving mastery. That last time, here's what I saw that was better. Like you guys are moving in the right direction. I've seen just like, even with like some relatively challenging groups, I've seen a lot of just like really great success with embedding those types of strategies. Um, and so that's kind of like where I would go with like the teaching element is like it's it's really important. And
Hmm.
so if we're able to do that well, like we're gonna build up these younger athletes well.
100%. I will also take a step further
Let's go.
and say it's also important to apply the same principles when you're doing coaching education clinics and seminars. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of the story or call anyone out, but I was speaking at a conference and we were doing um, exactly what you're saying. We were skipping, we were hopping, we were on the track. Um, and this coach, very athletic, all the running, nailed it. But when we go into that single legs, hops, skips, some more of the coordination, he was just not having it. And it was at that point where I was like, okay, I took him aside because I didn't want like him to be like singled out. But like I pulled him aside and I was like, okay, you're not getting this, and that is fine. I completely fine. They're hard. So what I want you to do is walk next to me and we're going to do them. We're just going to walk. So just have the intention of okay, pop pop, pop pop, pop pop. Um so I said like when you next go up to the line, take your time with it. You do not have to sprint or you do not have to have it fast right now. Let's just again skill acquisition, just slow it down, make it move, make it perfect. Um by the end of the day, he was skipping, he was doing it.
Yeah,
And it's like that thing of like if someone's not getting it, don't just like fucking throw your dummy out of prom. Just like take
true.
them aside, teach them proper. Because like even like from a culture building standpoint, they'll probably buy into what you're saying from then on. Like, oh, he's telling me to do it this way. Wait, he helped me with that. That worked. He's probably going to listen to me a lot more now that I've like took my time to like really go through it with him too. So this teaching coaching loop applies on like all aspects of life.
The thing that like so my frame for this is very much like the teaching. Coaching looks a lot more like a partnership to me. And then like I think about leadership, and leadership looks a lot more like vision and alignment of like a group, right? So I try to think of it like, okay, here's my loop, and as, let's just say, the authority in the room, right? The person that's making the decisions for the group. I really try to figure out like where am I going to lean heavier into, right? Like do
Mm,
I have to get everybody kind of on board and play that like leadership visionary um role right now, which like sometimes the answer is definitely yes. Like sometimes you just got to like, this is like, this is what we're doing and this is why, and I've got to like maybe make a group course correct or something along those lines, but like get us like realigned with like the values, the vision, what we're doing here, right? Like that's like
mm,
leadership, right? Like getting everybody on the same page to the same mission. Sometimes that's definitely like important. I got to lean into like my ability to lead well. coaching to me is very much so like the partnership. Like when I'm doing like a one-on-one cue, and like that's and it's for you, right? Like in this moment, like it's individualized for you. That's very much so like how I like lean into coaching, right? Is it's like I understand your goals and it's tailored toward you. This is a partnership between you and me, and I'm supporting you in achieving your goals. All related though to the mission still, right? So like I play like that role too, and then it's like, and how much do I? How are you? Um, are you self-sufficient enough? And this is not like a diss on anybody, but are you self-sufficient enough where we actually have a partnership, or like do I have to like unpack this for you and teach? And that's kind of
Mm.
like how I like think about it on a continuum. And then I try to do a really good job of like leaning where I need to be the most productive, right? Like at the end of the day, like if athletes are more successful when they leave you than when they came to you, like you did your job. So I try to lean into like that's my loop. That's my loop.
Yeah. No, and I think it's what you said before. Like as you go through this industry, you have to create your systems and you have to create your pathways to your package. And I'll say package and I'll explain it a little bit. Like your pack is your deliverables. Like, are you a coach? Yes. What are your systems? Are you sports scientist? What's your specifics? Like, what is your systems for getting from athletes from A to B in the best and healthiest way possible? And again, systems can be in anything, business, just there's a system for everything, like your day to day life as well.
You have to have systems. You have to have something that allows you to take your decision making and put it into something that you're not constantly going, here's the broad everything, and then I distill it down. It's like, no, 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 no. I already considered the broad, and then I put it into a system. And unless there's a reason for me to, for me, I like to think that I've been intentional enough in building my systems that I know why those systems exist. And so
Mm,
if I know why they exist, then I also can appreciate that when something isn't quite where I need it to be, I can break my own rules because I thought about why it exists in the first place. And so I can adjust from there. And so like I'll give like an example, right? It's like if I've got a client who is, and this is different, right? Like this is like now like me talking about training adult population. Like if normally what I do is I execute for an athlete like this, and when I'm working with an athlete, like it's rare that I work with athletes who are weight loss athletes and where that like really falls onto like me. Now, not that I wouldn't, not that I don't have a lot of experience in coaching nutrition, not that I haven't coached athletes through nutrition. It's just like haven't had that a ton. I'll just say it that way. I
mm,
haven't experienced that a lot. But like I'm working with a client that's a recomposition client. She wants to put on some muscle mass. She wants to lose some weight. It's like, okay, well, that system now is not the best system for her, right? So like if I know, well, why did I choose this system to be like this? I can go, well, what about this system allows for her to meet those goals? And what can I manipulate and change that I can at least, because I have a frame of reference, go, this is probably how I want this to exist for her. And I can share that. I mean, it's two supersets of strength training. So it's warming up and then it's two supersets of strength training, then we finish with hit, right? And so we still get
mm,
like the high intensity and then we bring it down and then we bring it up and then we bring it back down. And so now it's like that is probably closer, and we'll measure. She's getting periodic, in bodies, and so I'll know if her muscle mass goes up and I'll know if her fat goes down. I'll know if, hey, how are you eating right now? And is your diet supporting this goal? And if it's not, maybe I say, do you need support with the nutrition? Do I need to come alongside you in this way as well? Or do you feel confident that you've got this? And we'll just like that's coaching though, right? Like that's a true partnership
mhm,
where it's like, I've made these decisions on your behalf. Here's how I'm executing that. And then those honest conversations from there. But like
mm,
now I have a system for a recomposition client that if I see another one, like that's how I'll frame it. And if it works, I'll keep it going. And if it doesn't work, I will make another decision based on a frame of reference that I have, because when you're around this enough, you know that there's a ton of different methods in order to accomplish a task.
So you've said two very interesting things. One, that you'll get a lot of people in this industry mad, and I fully support your opinion. And the other one is more of a process. How would I say it? Process building systems. We'll say building systems. So the first one is mixing methods. So you spoke about a strength block and a hit block all in the one session. You can't do that, Blair. The textbooks, but the textbooks, Blair. So
Yeah.
not often will you have enough time to execute each block with athletes as the textbooks say. I know the textbook says like 5 minutes for strength, power, but like if you have a 45-minute session, that's what, like 2, 3 sets.
Yeah. Logistics always have to trump what the theory, because they just do.
Yep,
So you've got to make decisions that also fit into a framework of whatever those logistics are. And so, yeah, again, I'm certainly not saying that this is going to be the best way. It's just the way that I determined was
I
going
do
to
it.
be the most
Yep.
effective for her based on her goals. Like, I was really intentional about, this is what you're trying to accomplish. Here's how we're going to try to do that. Then the next, she doesn't even know this yet, but the next time, we next time that we're together, we're going to do a whole bunch of eccentrics embedded in there, so that we just prolong time under tension, because she wants to gain muscle mass. That's really important to her. So we're going to manipulate that variable. All we're doing all the time is we're manipulating variables based on the thing that just makes the most sense to us, or at least that's what I'm trying to do, right? So if it's preseason, I want to manipulate the variable where we're actualizing. Actualizing to me means in context of the sport, and so I want to make sure that the dial is turned up for speed, right? So the exposures to speed and higher velocity movement is going up. That's why I like complex training um, during those times, is because I'm trying to dial up the exposures to actualizing movement. Off season, that turns back down a little bit, and those are just like the kind of like opposites of like bridging the gap from like early off season to right when we get up to the season. Like, that's how those dials just continue to move in that direction. That's how I've done it for a while. I think I've leveraged what I would call like a vertical integration model, right? So it's like you're gonna see all sorts of different types of training, with even within in the same session, but the amount of that is going to be manipulated along the way.
Mm.
The
Again,
emphasis.
my second point, and there's kind of two points into this. And when you're talking about your processes and how you can sort of apply them to different people, we were also talking about like write them down and have them recorded. Like when you're building systems, you need to have a directory of what you did, how you did it, how you applied it, the intent. Like it needs to be specific to everything that you did. And this helps for a couple reasons. And it's like if you've had results work perfectly one
Sure.
way, you
Sure.
reapply them. Even if it doesn't align 100%, all you have to do at that point is just tweaks.
Yep.
Like, so I mentioned it a couple episodes now, but like, I like cleaning. Like, cleaning is very therapeutical to me. But what I like to do is like do one big deep clean, and then from then on, it's just top ups, right? Like, so the same thing kind of applies when you're coaching and building these systems. Like, spend time, take your time with it, like really dissect what you did, how you did it, why you did it. Like, have all these subcategories. So then when you then get asked to apply again, you don't need to reinvent the whole system. Like, you already have a guide there. All you need to do is like apply it. If it doesn't work 100%, tweak it, because like
Yep.
tweaking is a lot easier than reinventing it.
Absolutely. And when we're insanely busy, because that's the nature of the jobs that we chose, like, yeah, you don't even get the opportunity. And so if you haven't really thought and reflected through your systems, like, you're going to run into greater challenges down the
Hmm.
road, because now I need this time that I don't have. So um yeah, I definitely think that that's worth it to go about it
Yeah,
that way.
and then to my second point, which is a great shout out to TeamBuildr, massive sponsor on this podcast, and we love them and appreciate them all the time. Um, Again, PHL Cup for a 30-day free trial. Anyways, back to it. Um, when we when I use TeamBuildr and I create blocks and periods and have like a 6 to 4 to 12 to 18 week blocks, I save them. I save each individual session because like that could be like a fun session. So like if I create like a so what I like to do sometimes is like I'll program the whole week, but I'll have one day that's just like a fuck around. Like just go in and do whatever you want. I don't care. Just get in, do what you want. If you want to do 50 sets of bicep curls, I'm fine with it. We've prepared you enough everywhere else that you can afford that. So it's kind of like giving them a fun session, but there
There's
will
some
always
research
be a
behind
guideline.
that too.
Sorry?
There's some research around that too, that's actually very beneficial.
Yes. So again, I've always been an asshole and I will always be an asshole. By university, I always made sure, like, whenever we got program assignments, I was throwing in something like some bullshit, but like I would justify it perfectly as to why that could work. And
I
like
love
I've always gotten A's.
it. That's
I
good.
think my favorite one, we were doing it was during COVID, so it was an exam, but the exam was online.
Okay.
Um, so I was typing out the program for this. I think it was a hockey athlete, and he was a guy. So what one session was, it just ended up with bicep curls, like 3 sets of I don't know 12. So let's just say, and I was like, it involves buy-in. It gives them a great stimuli, elbow health. So like I justified it just right to be like, fuck, he just did bicep curls, but like fuck it. That
I love it.
um but it's again, I save these sessions because like if they're like, oh, I really enjoyed that session, like can we do it again? I don't have to like go back, check what it is. Like I've got it labeled, I've got it categorized, it's there. I just copy and paste it. Like
Yeah.
using TeamBuildr that way really saves time. And again, like when people ask me like why should I use TeamBuildr, I say like it's not a programming app. It's not just that. It's like
Yeah.
it's a time saver app. Like when you build your system, like when you have your groups, when you have your athletes, like categorize everything. So like when you get on, you have this just it's just flowing. Like you don't need a lot of thinking. You just like click, click, program done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's insanely helpful for sure. I agree. I think, like, if you can do that, and not because it was like the lazy route, like you thought about it, but
Hmm.
you systemized it, and then you create something that allows you to spend, honestly, like, truthfully, like, more time actually coaching.
Coaching.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yep.
Um,
That's my goal always. Like I think I've mentioned it to you, but I hate social media. I hate like not being in the gym coaching. Like
sure.
if I could just do that all the time, I would be in heaven. Like that would be my ideal. But
Yeah.
I have to do everything else to do that. So the more stuff I can automate and have systems for, the longer I can stay in the gym coaching. That's my goal.
Well, and like, it's not to say, obviously, if the worst case scenario is, like, you program for someone and they aren't able to do the majority of what you programmed, right? Like, they're just for whatever reason, like they can't do it. So it's like you're not bound to anything. Like you
Mm,
literally, I mean, I think even like having the structure and then being able to modify and then quickly save what you've just modified is also insanely helpful. So like even in that, it's like, okay, I made decisions on the fly. I can go back and check and make sure, okay, I liked these decisions for this reason that I made. Because we do that all the time. We have to make decisions on the fly. And so
mhm.
you can even like save those decisions and use them for the future. So like that's also huge.
Again, some people might think that's lazy coaching. I think it's smart coaching because like you're not having to reinvent everything all the time.
Yeah. And like everything is going to be relative anyways, right? Like
Mm,
if you're benching and like you prescribe an intensity, that's relative to what they're capable of achieving anyways. And if the bench
mhm.
press looks like crap, maybe they're not bench pressing and you put in, you make those adjustments on their behalf. So no, all of that, like it just allows you to be more attentive to the
Mm,
thing that actually requires your attention.
100%. Um, and I think again, that's what it's about. It's like the intention of what you're doing. Like, I think Missy Mitchell Macbeth said it the best way possible. Like, you have to give a shit. Like, that's period.
Yeah, and then the nice thing about, the people we work with, right, the athletes, like they're perceptive. They know.
Mm,
They know if you're invested. If like if you're letting them get away with like doing something, not executing, like and you just let it go, like they know you're not invested. They know
mhm,
that you don't care. It's obvious. Like it's you can't hide it. You can like honestly like I love this expression, but it's like you can write the best program in the whole world, but if you don't have buy-in and you're not present with them in order for them to get better, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything.
yeah.
Like you've got to be like both, mentally like excuse me, but mentally present, and then also knowledgeable. Like you do
Mhm.
need to be both.
Okay, so this is another topic that I love to get into. Yes,
Okay.
you have to be knowledgeable, right?
Hmm.
But not all athletes give a shit about the calcium pump, right?
Sure, of course.
So you also have to demonstrate your knowledge in a way that they'll understand. And I think that's, again, going back to that coaching and teaching loop, is like the ability to express yourself in a way that they understand, the simplest way form, like that makes you a great coach.
Yeah, so I'm not telling any athlete about the calcium pump, but I definitely what I'm
I
definitely
love the
talking.
calcium pump. That is like my favorite thing
Yeah,
to
we're not
talk
we're
about.
not we're not bringing up the Krebs cycle, okay? But we will talk about like the duration of time that you need to be executing a task to get this metabolic benefit, or you okay, like even like if we're talking speed, it's like hey, I need you to actually rest in between efforts
Mm,
because I need your output to be maximal. So I'm not talking to them, although I will say I did have one athlete when I said, hey, why do you rest in between efforts of speed? And he's like, regenerate the creatine phosphate. I'm like, are you kidding me with that right now? Like, yes, but that's not the answer I was looking for, weirdo. Like in the best way, because obviously like I've loved it. But I was like, no, well, yes, but like, will you be able to maintain that same output if you don't fully rest? And
mm.
he's like, no. And I was like, that's the answer I was looking for. But thank you for going the extra mile and getting extra credit, I guess. Um,
Brownie points.
but that's what I try to make sure that I'm instilling is like, uh, yeah, it's really challenging if we're doing something from like let's say that we're doing like eccentric tempos. Like those are hard. That's hard to
Mm,
honor the tempo. And like that's like it does. But hey, if we're actually going to fundamentally increase our ability thinking about building this foundation for the long term, if we're going to actually like say that we're building muscle mass for the purpose of down the road being able to recruit more violently, right, so that it applies to your sport, right now we've got to build the tissue. So therefore, we've got to honor we've got to honor the tempo. We have
Mm,
to do it. We have to stay in it for this long.
100%.
Try to
And I
make it happen.
think, yeah, 100%. Again, your ability to communicate what you want is key. I love like when coaches are like, "Oh, we need to push as hard as we can horizontally to make sure that we propel ourselves forward. Just fucking be aggressive, hit that floor as hard as you can, but you're kind of going like in this angle."
Sure. Sure.
Simple,
The other thing
simple.
too, right? That is simple. I totally agree with you. And the nice thing is like obviously the thing that makes me think about is like, all right, great, like put him behind a sled, right? Because immediately that just
Mm,
changes your trajectory, and that or have them pull something that allows them
banded.
to exactly. And so it's like put them in, you can change the conditions to put them in a position to be successful, and then what's really nice about that is it looks like the thing that you say it's going to do. And so it's like
Hmm.
the the amount of explanation when there's it's very obvious that like that is um the outcome of the effort
Hmm.
is very nice because you don't have to it looks like the
Yeah,
thing you're going
a
to do with
little,
it.
a little example on that actually is I have been coaching a sprint athlete since we were both 18. And he had this horrible habit of like coming out the blocks, but he would go like vertical as soon as quick as possible. So like he just like shot his hips up, which obviously like that then starts like deceleration at that point because like initial phase is horizontal, so you can push as much ground backwards, so you can go forwards, right? But
Hmm.
he was just shooting his hips up. So what I ended up doing, it really only happened in blocks. Like if we were stance or 3 point, he managed to keep that horizontal. So like what I did is like I hooked a band to a tree and let him go off the
Yeah.
blocks
Heck
and
yeah.
let him go off blocks because like that way he had to keep that horizontal because like the band's not going to let you shoot your hips up. It's just not.
Right. Right.
So hooked him up and I was like, we're doing 3 sets. And like by the
Okay.
end, like in race day and like meet dates, he was going exactly horizontal for as long as he needed. And then he crept
Well,
up and just fucking went. It was sick to watch.
that's awesome. No, that's huge. What a good win. Honestly, what a good win.
Like, and I think it also comes from like experimental and being a little bit crazy enough to try different things.
Yeah. Yeah. You do have to be willing to take what you understand and also kind of like be creative with it, right? Like just because, and it probably has been done before if we're being honest, but it's like but just because you haven't seen it done before, if
Mm,
it stands to your principles and your understanding, then great, like roll with it. I mean, I've moved kind of like far further beyond this in particular, but like I used to love like putting people in positions to either give them like rowing exposures or pushing exposures while maintaining like that like your core stability, right? Like so
mm,
man, when I was when that was really what I was trying to focus on providing for people, that was so fun because at the time it made sense within the context of like my okay, I want to make sure that the core is stable, but I also want to make sure that you have access. So we were doing, side plank rows, bear crawl holds with like, banded pulls and presses and like just having it like because it made sense for this is the thing I'm going after. And this also gives you the opportunity. It didn't it like people are holding positions while I wasn't creating any like the environment was safe, first of all, the environment was safe, so great. Like, let's like double down on making sure that we're not just doing something recklessly. But
Mm.
then everything after that, it was like it accomplished the objectives that I wanted it to accomplish. Great, execute it.
Yep.
Like, that's what we're responsible for doing. I haven't given an
Hmm.
athlete that in particular, but that was the thing that I understood at the time, and that was my reasoning behind it, and therefore I was creative and I went with it. And people loved it. And I think when you
Mm.
bring in like the elements of creativity, you are also excited about it. And so I think when you can bring that to athletes too, like you don't even realize like how much that also just gets them, right? Like the
Hmm.
way that you present something because you're excited about it. And I mean, maybe this is just me, but like when I have an opportunity to think about something on someone's behalf and then program it for them, I'm excited about it. Like this is what I believe is something that's going to make you successful. So like that excitement then also transfers into how they execute how and how they perceive it, right? And so in that way, like that's also incredibly exciting and fun.
I think as well, like I think that's why games are so effective in the weight room, and like even outside, like on the turf. Like if you can make something competitive and just like have an element of fun, like they'll give more than 110%. Like they will go all out.
Yeah, yeah, if I'm big on leveraging competition when I can, because the
A
outputs are
coach
just going to
that's
be
really
different.
good at that is Cam. What's his last name? Cam Dietz. Like
Okay,
he's a baseball assistant at A, and he leverages that all the time. And like you can tell his athletes are having fun.
that's huge too. The 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 drive to compete, the fact that it's fun. um yeah, if what you're going for is the output aspect, competition is incredibly useful to leverage, no doubt.
100%. Blair, appreciate you so much for coming on
Yeah, of
today.
course.
I want to give you your floor to talk about your courses and how people can find them and get to them.
Perfect.
I will also link them below if you've got links for them.
I can definitely do that. So for the TeamBuildr course on building an internship, that will be launched through TeamBuildr. They will market that, and when that's obvious, we'll make sure that there's a link. It is to be published, so it is not yet currently, but is completed on my end. It'll just be a means of when it's released. And then, like I said, the certified performance in sports science certification, that's independently being released. And so that's truthfully just contact me, and that'll be delivered through email. And so my email is built for this sports performance at gmail.com. And you can also shoot me a DM at built for the sports performance on Instagram as well. So those are the two best ways to get a hold of me and get access to that course. It is in pre-sale right now, and so I'm giving a pretty good discount on what it will ultimately be. So I would certainly encourage getting in on that pre-sale.
Perfect. Again, Blair, appreciate you so much for coming on today.
I had a blast. Thank you so much.
Peace.